Design is the foundation of all artistic applications, and understanding of its principles will help you develop a strong visual eye and the judgment needed to create successful designs for your clients. Barbers work with three-dimensional design elements of line, form, space, texture, and color. A line is a simply series of connected dots that result in a continuous mark. Straight and curved lines are used in hair cutting to create design, shape, and direction. Curved lines are either concave or convex in shape and may repeat as a wave pattern. The three types of straight lines used in hair cutting are horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines. Horizontal lines are parallel to the horizontal or floor and direct the eye from one side to the other. Horizontal cutting lines build weight and are used to create one length look and low elevation or blunt haircut designs. Weight lines are usually created at the perimeter of the occipital area of the haircut. Vertical lines are perpendicular to the floor and described in terms of up and down. Vertical parting facilitate projecting the hair at a higher elevation while cutting. Vertical lines remove weight within cut and create layers. Layers may be cut in from shorter to long, cut in from long to short, or cut uniformly depending on the finger placement. Diagonal lines have a slanted direction and are used to create slope lines within a haircut or at the perimeter or determine the design line. When used at the perimeter, these lines are referred to as diagonal forward or diagonal back. When used in the top section of a haircut design, a diagonal line increases length at one end and slopes down to shorter length at the opposite end. Diagonal finger placement may also be used to create a stacked layered effect at the perimeter or to blend longer layers to shorter layers within a haircut. Curved lines moved in a semicircular or circular direction and can be shallow or deep. Curved lines soften a design and can be placed horizontally, vertically, or diagonally. When repeated in opposite direction, they create a wave pattern. The rounded proportion of a concave line curves inward, and the rounded proportion of a convex line curves outward. Concave and convex lines are often used at the perimeter of a hair design in the neck or back area and around the face. Cutting the nape or back area into a rounded shape with the curve at the bottom of the design produces a convex line. Cutting the nape area into a rounded shape with the curve at the top of the design and end of the curved endings at the corners of the nape produces a concave line. Form is an outline or shape of a hairstyle. The elements of width, length, and depth create three-dimensional shape that can vary in terms of volume, proportion, and balance. Hairstyles should be proportionate to the client's overall body shape and size and balance with the features of his head, face, and neck. Proportion measures or shows the comparative relationship between two or more design elements of a form. These elements influence the visual proportion of one section of the head form of another, or between the head form and the facial features and or of the body. For example, if a client has a long neck, you shorten the natural hairline to the nape to hide on the back of the head. The haircut will look out of proportion or disproportionate to the client's neck length and appear unbalanced. Balance is the equal or appropriate proportion that creates symmetry and harmony in a design. Balance can be symmetrical or asymmetrical depending on the cutting lines and the ratio of length to width in the overall shape of the style. Hair density is an appropriate design element when discussing balance because difference in the thickness of the hair can make one side appear heavier than the other and create an unbalanced or unfinished look. Space, as it relates or art and design elements, space is considered either positive or negative. In the hair design, the form, haircut, or style occupies positive space, and the area that surrounds it is negative space. Barbers are usually more aware of the positive space than the negative space. However, it is negative space that brings the positive space into sharp focus. For example, when you face a client toward the mirror to check your work, his haircut occupies positive space in the background you see in the mirror, because negative space allowing you to see areas of the form that needs adjusting when checking for balance and proportion. Design texture refers to the quality of a form surface. Is the surface shiny or dull, rough or smooth, straight or wavy or curly? These conditions compact the degree to which light reflects off the surface of the hair and therefore affects the image or form we see. For example, wavy hair may appear to have light areas at the top of the wave and dark areas at the bottom of the wave, which may need special blending to appear more uniform and close-cut hairstyling. Color. Like texture, different colors reflect light differently. Dark colors tend to recede in a design, and lighter color appear to come in a foreground. These color differences create the illusion of more or less depth and volume in a form. An angle is the space between two lines, surfaces that interact at a given point. Angles help to create strong, consistent foundation in hair cutting and are used in two ways. Angles can refer to the degree of elevation at which the hair is held for cutting. A typical instruction, for example, would be angle the hair section at a 45-degree projection from the head. Angles can also refer to the position of the fingers when cutting a section of the hair, as using vertical parting angles the fingers 45 degrees from the hairline to the occipital. Directional terms used in hair cutting typically refers to how the tool is used relative to the direction of the way the hair grows. Cutting against the grain means to cut the hair in the opposite direction from which it grows. Cutting with the grain is cutting the hair in the same direction in which it grows. Cutting across the grain means the hair is cut in a direction that is neither with or nor against the grain. Cutting with a circular motion may be required in rural areas where the hair does not grow in a uniform manner. Cross-checking is the process of parting off subsections opposite from the elevation or direction at which they were cut to check the prescription of cutting lines or blending. For example, a vertical subsection cut at a 90-degree projection can be cross-checked by parting off the subsection horizontally at 90 degrees. Elevation is the angle or degree at which a section of the hair held from the head for cutting relatively from where it grows. Elevation, also known as projection, is the result of lifting the hair section above zero elevation or a natural fall. This projection of the hair while cutting produces graduation or layer and is usually described in terms of degrees. Zero elevation is the lowest elevation and produces weight, bulk, and maximum length at the perimeter of a hair design. Zero elevation is achieved by combing the hair straight down from where it grows and cutting it either against the skin or as it is held straight down between the fingers to create a perimeter or a design line. The design lines serve as a guide for all the sequence parting that will be brought to the perimeter for cutting. Zero elevation cutting creates a crisp, clean line at the hairline on shorter hairstyles and achieve the standard blunt cut on longer hair. Holding the hair at 45 degrees from where it grows is considered to be the medium elevation. Medium elevation or graduation creates layered ends or stacking within the parting of hair from the zero elevation distance to the 45-degree position. Movement and texture are created within the distance between the 2 degrees. Depending on the length of the hair and the position of the angle in relation to the head form, a horizontal, parting, and stationary guide at the perimeter is used to achieve the graduated stacked effect. Graduation can be achieved by using a vertical parting projected at 45 degrees with a diagonal finger placement of 45 degrees. A 90-degree elevation is most common projection used in men's hair cutting and is considered to be a high elevation. A 90-degree elevation produces layering, tapering, and blending effect. When using a 90-degree elevation, the hair is held straight out from the head from where it grows. Either vertical or horizontal parting are used depending on the section of the head form being cut. A 90-degree elevation requires a traveling guide in order to move around and over the curve of the entire head. Lengths in various sections of the head form can vary, but the hair should still be blended overall. A 90-degree elevation is used to create a uniform layers in which each hair section is cut to the same length, or to perform a taper that is shorter at the hairline and increasingly longer towards the top. In both cases, the hair is positioned at a 90 degree using a vertical parting in the back section. However, to create a tapered effect, the fingers and therefore the cutting line are positioned at a 45 degree angle to allow closer cutting to the head form and the nape area. If the hair cutting is started at the nape, the fingers will be positioned at the 45 degree angle from the hairline and will gradually reposition to a perpendicular position and then beyond a perpendicular as the hair is cut and blended over the curve of the head to the top section. An elevation of 180 degrees is often used to create layers when cutting long hair. A 90 degree stationary guide is used, usually in the top section, and the longer hair in the sides and back are elevated to the guide for cutting. It is important to remember that the hair being cut is at a 180 degree elevation, not the stationary guide. A part is a line created naturally or with a comb that divides the hair at the scalp, separating one section of the hair from another. The position and direction of a natural part is determined by the direction of slant the hair takes as it leaves the follicle. A client natural part can easily be determined by combing clean, damp hair back towards the crown and then gently pushing the section forward. Where the hair splits and falls to either side reveals the natural part. A hard part is created during the finishing steps of a haircut by shaving the scalp area of a natural or styled part in the hair. A parting or subsection in a smaller section of hair that is parted off from a larger section of hair. The use of parting is essential to maintain control of the hair in manageable proportion and to perform prescription cutting. The direction of the parting line at the scalp should be consistent with the intent cutting line. Parting may be horizontal, vertical, or diagonal. Parting are held horizontally, vertically, or diagonally with the usual elevation range of 0 to 180 degrees. The way a parting is sectioned off from a larger section is projected from cutting determines the end result. Layering with a haircut is usually achieved using 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch partings. The cutting line is established by the angle of the fingers or comb when securing a section of hair for cutting. Cutting lines are horizontal, vertical, and diagonal based on the position of the fingers or tools. The cutting tool used will follow the position and angle of the fingers or comb when cutting. Finger or comb placement should be checked before cutting to avoid cutting in an unwanted line design, losing the guide, cutting off too much hair. The design line is the outer perimeter line of the haircut. It may act as a guide depending on the overall design of the haircut and the method of the barber used to achieve it. A design line can be seen in the hanging length of a blunt cut or along the hairline of a short cut, wherever the perimeter of the haircut is located. A guide, also known as a guideline or a guide strand, is is a cut that is made by which subsequently parting or section of a hair will be measured and cut. Guides are classified as being either stationary or traveling. Both types of guides may originate at the outer perimeter of the hair at the interior section, such as the crown area. Most haircuts are achieved by using a combination of two types of guides. Stationary guide is used for achieving overall one length looking design at the perimeter, maintaining the length of a section while subsequently parting a broad from other sections to meet it for cutting. This produces either an overall long layered effect or extra length within a section. A traveling guide moves along a section of the hair. Each cut is made. Once the length of the initial guide has been cut, a parting is taken from in front or near it, combed with the original guide and cut. Then a new parting is taken, combed with the second parting of the hair and cut against that guide. It is that use of the previous guide to cut a subsequently part of the hair that makes it a traveling guide. Care must be taken not to recruit the original or subsequent guide as you move along the section to cut a new parting. When performed correctly, a traveling guide ensures even layering and blending of the hair from one section to another. Layers are produced by elevating the hair beyond zero elevation for cutting. Layers can originate from the top, crown, or perimeter. Layering can be angled, uniform, or fully tapered. Layering is used to blend, to create fullness, or to create movement or texture in the hair. A taper means that the hair conforms to the shape of the head. The hair is shorter at the nape and hairline and longer in the crown and top areas. Most men haircuts require some form of tapering. Blending of all of the hair length is extremely important. A weight line refers to the heaviest perimeter area of a zero elevation or 45-degree cut. A weight line is achieved by using a stationary guide at the perimeter and may be cut in a variety of levels on the head depending on the style. Weight lines can be used in a combination with a tapered nape area. The perimeter of the weight line in a longer hairstyle that looks to be one length. Texturizing is usually performed after overall cut has been completed to create a special effect such as wispy or spiky strands within the haircut or along the perimeter. Tension is the amount of pressure applied while combing and holding a section of hair for cutting. Tension ranges from minimum to maximum as a result of the amount of stretching employed when holding the hair between the fingers. The spacing between the teeth of the comb also influence the amount of tension you will be able to achieve when combing the hair. This is because between spacing, the teeth allows more or less movement in the hair. For example, a fine-tooth comb facilitates more tension than a wide-tooth comb because the hair has less room to move or shift while combing takes place. Using maximum tension on strength creates precise line. Use minimum to moderate tension on curly or wavy hair as the hair may dry shorter than intended if maximum tension is used. Thinning refers to removing excess bulk from the hair. Outlining, meaning marking the outer perimeter of the haircut in front of the around the ears and at the sides, nape of the neck. Outlining at the front hairline is optional depending on the hair texture. Over direction creates a length increase in the design and occurs when the hair is combed away from its natural fall position rather than straight out from the head towards a guide. Hairstyling is the art of arranging the hair in a particular style that is apparently suited to the cut. Hairstyling may involve the use of styling aids such as the hairspray gel tonic, oil sheen, pomade, or mousse. Appliances in the form of blow dryers or irons, and implements such as brushes, combs, and clips. During the course of your barbering career, you will be introduced to a variety of hair cutting terms. Terminology, for the most part, depends on who is presenting the information or technique and whether or not new terms have replaced formerly used terms. For example, parting and subsetting are terms that are often used interchangeably. Here are some important things to remember about terminology used in hair cutting and styling. There are only so many angles and elevations that can be used in hair cutting. Specific effects are created by using specific angles and elevation. History has a way of repeating itself in our industry, and style trends to be cycle in nature. For example, crew cuts and box fades been traced back to the years of World War II. Finger waves were a hit in the 1920s and 1930s, and braiding has probably been around since humans first walked the earth. Design variants occur when a new spin or twist incorporated into a basic cut or style. These examples specifically reinforce why it is important that you perform confident in the basic skills, which will enable you to adapt to whatever the current terminology or trend might be. In Chapter 5, you are introduced to the correct holding positions of the comb, shears, clippers, and razor. The term used to describe how we use these basic tools are fingers and shears, shear over comb, freehand shear cutting, freehand clipping cutting, clipper over comb, razor over comb, and razor rotation. It is important to note that most hair cutting procedures require a combination of techniques and tools. The important factors that determine the tools used to achieve haircuts and the client's desired outcome, the texture and density of the hair, and the barber's personal preference. As a professional barber, you should be comfortable to skillful using all the tools of the trade. The primarily shear cutting techniques used in the barbering are fingers and shears, shear over comb, shear, point tapering, and freehand shear cutting. Other shear techniques are used for texturizing and removing bulk in the hair. The finger shear technique may be used on many hair types, from straight to curly. The three basic methods for using fingers and shear techniques are cutting on the top of the fingers, cutting below the fingers, and cutting palm to palm. Cutting above the fingers is frequently used in men hair cutting to cut and blend layers in the top, crown, and horsey areas. It is also used when cutting hair that is held out at a 90-degree elevation from a vertical parting, such as the sides and back of the head form. Whether your finger position is perpendicular to the floor or angled at a 45 degree in these sections, the cutting should be performed on the outside of the fingers. Cutting below the fingers is most often used to create a design line at the perimeter of the haircut. Cutting palm to palm may be referred by some practitioners. Care must be taken not to bend the hair or to project it higher than intended from the head form when using this technique. Also remember that the shears follow finger placement, so avoid curling the fingers inward when cutting unless you want a curved cutting line. The shear over comb technique is used to cut the ends of the hair, and it is an important method to use in tapering. The comb is used to put the hair in a position to be cut and acts similarly to holding a section of the hair between the fingers. Most shear over comb cutting is performed in the nape, behind the ears areas, and the side burn areas of a cut. However, an entire haircut can be accomplished using this method. Following are a few important guidelines for performing the shear over comb technique. Use vertical working panels when using cutting back and side sections. Make sure panels overlap for better blending to avoid missing sections of the hair that needs to be cut. After your first cut, make sure you can use the guide so you know where to cut or to cut from next. Use a diagonal comb placement when using cutting areas behind the area of the ears. Take some time and practice the following exercises to help you master shear over comb cutting. You can practice it in front of a mirror or facing a partner. Position the comb and shears parallel to each other. Practice aligning the steel blade of the shears with the comb at the level where the teeth join back of the comb. Move the comb upward, opening and closing the shears simultaneously with the movement of the comb. After several cutting movements, use a key turning motion to roll the teeth of the comb away from you, as if you were combing through hair. Once you have become comfortable with the exercise, you can begin practicing on a mannequin. Start at the hairline in the center of the nape area. With the teeth of the comb pointing upward, comb into a section of the hairline, rolling the comb outward towards you. The comb should produce from the teeth of the comb and be positioned for cutting. This is called rolling the comb out. Simultaneously, move the shears and comb through the center panel, cutting the hair in the process. Stop the occipital area and comb the hair down towards the hairline. Begin the next panel by including some of the hair from the center section with the hair to the right of the left of the center. There should now be two lengths of the hair in this comb, shorter hair from center section and longer hair from the second section. The shorter hair with the center section become the guide for the second panel. Finish the vertical strip at the time before proceeding with the next section. The shear over comb technique is called used in shear point tapering to thin out or customize difficult areas caused by hollows, wrinkles, pores, or crease in the scalp. Dark and rag hair patches can be minimized using the shear point tapering technique. When used, the points of the shear to cut a few strands of the hair at a time until the spot becomes less noticeable and blends in the surrounding hair or hairline. Freehand shear cutting is a technique that may be used. Slice your fingers or comb to control the hair while cutting against the skin. This will depend on the personal preference and the type of freehand cutting performed. For example, combing a section of the hair down and cutting against the skin is a form of freehand shear cutting. However, you may perform to use the comb to control the hair sections against the client's skin. A second method of freehand shear cutting is consistently opening and closing the shears as the skin over the surface to cut any stray hair producing from the design. This technique can be used in the final stages of the hair cutting, beard trim, or other procedures to fine-tune other work, and is exceptionally effective for shampooing and trimming tight curl textures.